Welcome to Heart and Hand Extra. My name's David Edgar, and I'm joined this week by, he made his pod debut earlier this week, by the returning Iain McColl, the owner-operator of the Founders Trail. And Ian's going to talk us through a little bit about the Founders Trail, what it is, how it came to be, what its aims are, and just some of the stuff that he's discovered while he's been doing it. It's a really, really interesting take on a subject that I think a lot of Rangers fans would have to admit we don't know as much about as we should, which is that early gallant pioneer era. Iain, thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much, David. It's an absolute pleasure once again. Thanks very much.
And, for anyone who maybe missed the show this week, tell us a little bit about what the Founders Trail is.
What we do is we literally follow in the footsteps of the guys that formed the club. You know, we're bus tour, guided bus tour in Glasgow, telling their story, where of course Rangers played our first few games, and where the guys lived, where they worked, you know, and ultimately where a couple of them were laid to rest in cemeteries around Glasgow. We literally follow in the footsteps of our founders, you know, we're coach tour, even though the meeting point and our departure point is at Ibrox. Our first port of call is Fleshers Hall, and then we head up to the west end to Burnbank, back to the south side to Kinnan Park, and ultimately along to Ibrox, because there was a couple of them, you know, Moses and Tom Valance certainly lived long enough to see Rangers grow from essentially what was that boys' club in Fleshers Hall all the way into our current home at Ibrox Stadium. So wow. Yeah, it's been hugely popular with support over the last few years, and hopefully for many years to come. Yeah, it's wonderful sharing a unique and an incredible story, you know, with your fellow Bears. You know, it's been an absolute joy.
What was the genesis for it? What prompted you to start?
What happened, David, was it'd been a couple of questions that had been spinning about in my head from an early age. We're all handed these Rangers books, you know, A New Era, and a couple of books that I got from my dad. You know, I can always remember there was always one or two paragraphs at the start. You know, these four guys come in to Glasgow from the Gairloch. For Lover Rowing was always mentioned, formed football club. And there it kind of quickly moved on to the kind of William Walton and kind of Struth there. And I can remember saying to my dad, what happened to these guys? What do you mean? You know, it's like, well, guys like Valance and that, you know, were they still going to Ibrox when they were later on? Did they take up managerial? Well, I don't know. And it didn't matter how many people asked, they just didn't know. You know, so I think it's back in 2005, you know, got myself onto the internet. I said, I'm going to maybe dig at this. And started digging through a few facts, and that came out, ran about them, you know, and got myself to the Mitchell Library and onto the Scotland's People, and started piecing a few things together, and then I started posting on follow, and it was Gordon, you know, Gordon Bell, my colleague, he picked up on it and said, look, I've got a real thirst for much the same story. Do you fancy meeting up? Met up with him in July of 2007. We continued to research. There was more and more. My story was starting to appear, and it was at that point that Gary Ralston, a journalist, he contacted and said, look, I've been watching what you guys are doing. My aim is to get it into a book, this research. Do you fancy comparing notes? And this essentially was the book that I'd been searching for since childhood. No, it was never a groundbreaking business plan, Davey. You know, that was never the reason behind it. But what happened then was when more and more of these locations started to appear in the book, hit the streets, there were supporters coming saying, could you take us around about in some kind of formulated fashion?
The book was The Gallant Pioneers by Gary Ralston, if anyone's not checked that out, and you absolutely should. It's pretty essential to, as you say, it was a period I knew very little about, and it's an essential read.
Yeah, and very much so. And so it was more through the quest. You know, guys were saying, could you come and take us around in kind of some formulated fashion? So the first one we tried, and that would have been in the autumn of 2009. We thought we'd be kind of clever and do it by foot. And then there was about, I think there was 16, 17 people came along that day, which was great. Really nervous about it all, you know, this is just going to flop, you know. And we went up walking through the city centre, and a couple of kind of older guys with us, you know. I thought, God, this isn't going to work here. So we ended up jumping in the underground up to the West End, and then somebody suggested having a refreshment break up in the West End pub. and it then just descended into chaos, you know. I'm standing saying, "Oh, come on, guys, there's another couple of occasions, you know," and all I was getting back was, "Ian, just go get yourself a pint and sit in your arse, mate, will you?" You know, and then, so
that's possibly the most Rangers thing I've ever heard.
This pub across to Craigton Cemetery, you know, oh, it was a nightmare, you know. So I had employment history in the bus industry, and I always see the city sightseeing buses, and I thought, nah, or could we? Well, we try one. And I approached the guy who was running the city, and he said, "No, Ian, no, that's not going to work." He said, "I'm not having a busload of football supporters going in about the city centre on a Sunday afternoon." I said, "No, it won't be like that. You know, it'd be more, you know, it's an historical thing, you know. It's not what you think." I said, "Let's try one. Come on, just one." And he said, "Right, okay." And that was a huge success. And then we thought, right, so what would we do? We could add on the stadium tour at the end of the day. Then people make the complete journey, you know. And plus, the club then are going to get people through the front doors that they maybe wouldn't have done on a Sunday afternoon. So we approached the club, spoke to Sandy Jardine, and he was more than enthusiastic, you know. He said, yeah, go for it and see how it goes. And we were never to look back until the club went through the 2012-15 process, you know, and we suffered, as everyone did, you know. But we came out the other side of it. The good guys got in, you know, in March 2015, and since then, at every level of the club, people just can't do enough. You know, the media team, you know, it's quite a step, you know, if it's a few years ago standing outside the underground in match day handing out leaflets, and we've now got the Founders Trail adverts up in the Jumbotron screens within the stadium, you know. It's and that's only happened over the last 18 months to 2 years, Davey, so it's been absolutely fantastic. And essentially the whole thing is to get this story out, you know, the struggle that those kids, and they were kids, you know. That's one of the things people keep coming back to, is I didn't realise, you know, because they've got that image of the 1877 team in their head, you know, but the fact was that the guys, they were only 15 and 16, you know, when they formed the club, and they were only 16 and 17 year old when they were taking up office within the club on committees and honorary secretaries and treasurers, and an astonishing story, you know, how they stuck with it, you know, because again, people will come to us and say, "But why Rangers?" You know, and we'll say, "Well, it was purely down to their will and determination to succeed," because many clubs sprung up then, this new sport, association football was born, and many clubs sprung up, but they all went to a lot of them went to the wall kind of very quickly, you know. But these guys worked hard at it, you know, and we've came across some wonderful articles that were written in the early 1880s about the guys training 6 nights a week. You know, there was that famous line, you know, they would have trained for a seventh night, but for the observance of the Sabbath, which they found great frustration. And, you know, this was written by a guy, Willie Dunlop, who played alongside them in that 1877 team, you know, and he says, and their will and determination to succeed was just incredible, you know. Yeah, and that was to stand as in great stead, you know, for many years to come, you know, because as we recount the famous speech of Bill Struth, you know, as it was, you know, it's the days of the gallant pioneers, and he was aware of how much they put into it, you know,
to get it off the ground.
It's fascinating.
It's an astonishing beginning, and I mean, as you say, it's a story that's unrivalled and unique in world football, of 4 boys who have formed this thing that has endured and survived and been loved by so many for coming up now on 150 years. I want to go back to the start and just, because I know you continue this, but talk to me a wee bit about the research, because you've uncovered an awful lot of things that were in the archives but people didn't know them. What was your process for that? Because it seems to be, it's okay to have that as an idea, but there's a lot more to it than just walking into the Mitchell and going, "Show me all the unread Rangers articles." I mean, what happened? What was your process?
That's what the process was going to the Mitchell Library, you know, and we would get the 4 boys that were always mentioned, you know, Moses and Peter McNeill, you know, and Peter Campbell and Willie McBeath, you know, but more and more as we research was going on, certainly in the early days, the name of Tom Valens, this is a perfect example. The name of Tom Valens kept coming out every now and again, you know, newspaper reports, and then more and more often, you know, and I'm saying to God, this guy's got a fascinating story all of his own, you know. And then we'd go up there researching his story, you know, and it really can be simple sometimes, you know, as putting the name Tom Valens into search functions, you know, and you go up there, you know, or it can be a game, you know, that will just look for the newspaper reports for the day after, if you like, or a couple of days after, you know, and pick up stories from there. And but moving on from that, once we started to research quite intensely, Sandy Jardine came to us and he says, look, there is old club minute books at the club. He said, I've got a couple. He says, in my office. And we were like, oh my God, this is the Holy Grail stuff, you know. And he said, look, just feel free to come in anytime you want, if you want to browse through them, if it helps.
And these are actual minutes of meetings? Like historical meetings?
These are actual minute books that were written, you know, by the club, by guys like Sam Ricketts, etc., who was a player with the club. And you know, a perfect example from that is there's actually a minute there from the meeting that they sat down at Kinnan Park and decided to move to Ibrox. And he actually sit and read that in black and white. But the important thing on the back of that was there was new members coming into the club, and even the guys who were president of the club, secretary of the club, it would be minuted at the beginning of each monthly meeting their names and address, and that was absolutely gold dust, you know, because we were then picking up addresses all around about Glasgow, you know, and we managed to expand the trail route ever so slightly more. Did a bit more again, you know, to pick up these addresses, you know. And there was always newspaper reports, you know, when they won the cup in 1894. They were awarded the cup in the Alexandria Hotel, which is in Bass Street, and then you're up to Bass Street and getting the maps from the time and what number in Bass Street it would be now. Because also through time, sometimes street numbers changed, you know. And but it just kept. Honestly, it was if a hand from up above was helping guide us at times, you know, because the vast majority of the addresses were on the route that we were already following, you know. And the kind of Berkeley Street area of the town, when the boys first came into Glasgow, what would happen was, you know, there's a lot of communities, and they would kind of huddle in kind of small in areas, you know. They would, if someone was coming in from Glasgow from the countryside, they would try to find, you know, family or relations or people they knew, and they would go and live there. So our guys were all kind of around about the Berkeley Street, Gibson Street area, you know, to begin with. So it was fascinating how much was come out. And to be perfectly honest with you, I mean, the trail lasts for 4 hours. We have a 35-40 minute break up at Partick Bowling Club to kind of break the day for people, let them get something to eat and a drink. But we could extend this bus tour on to 6 hours, absolutely no problem at all. But it's just too long a day, Davey, you know. But it's been incredible. Yeah, and essentially that's what it was. As you said, the fascination behind the story. It's this group of kids that came into Glasgow, but they were to form what was to become the world's most successful football club.
Unbelievable,
you know. And the fact that 3 of them lived long enough, you know, to see them moving into Ibrox and playing in front of crowds 70, 80, 90,000, you know, it's that's an incredible thought, you know.
Tell me a little bit about your favourite places on the tour, without giving away the farm to people, because obviously we're going to give them where they can go and sign up, and they should have done the Founders Tour, and it's a wonderful experience, a very, very humbling experience, but a really wonderful experience. But what are some of your favourite places that you visit on the tour? We
took a lot of pleasure that day you came along with your dad that day, that we managed within that 4 hours to keep you off the microphone.
You know, see there, it made me realise that at all times I should carry one of my own. Just be able to communicate.
I wasn't missing that when you gave me an open goal there. Listen, there's locations all around about the city, you know, but Fleshers Hall is just, it's an extra special place, you know. I'm not a tour guide, and never will be, you know, but the way it was kind of set up, we were off, as I say, we first took the open top bus on. We've moved on to a Parts Hamilton coach now, incidentally, for people that are thinking of the winter's coming up. I'm not going about Glasgow on the open top buses. Anyway, we were offered a tour guide, but it just wouldn't have worked, Davey, you know. So Gordon basically, somebody's going to need to do it, or you're going to need to do it, you know. And but through time, and we're coming up for 91st tour now.
Wow.
In Saturday, it's grew confidence, you know. But it's absolutely magical to stand at Fleshers Hall, you know, and recount the stories there, and the wonderful stories that were found over the years. To actually stand there on that spot, you know, and share that with your fellow Rangers supporters, you know, is just it's just fantastic, you know. The amount of people, when you honestly wouldn't believe the amount of kind of older people that we've had on the tour that will tell you when they're going in. This is my first time through the front doors, and you're just like, wow. You know, and to see the absolute joy in people's faces, you know, not only coming in the front door, but going up the marble staircase and down the tunnel. It's just a joy, you know. It's fantastic. But no, Fleshers Hall is a very, very special place, you know.
Speaking about that, talk to me about the Fleshers Hall plaque that was raised a few years ago.
Yeah, we put that in place September 2009. Gary Ralston, through his research, managed to locate Peter McNeill, of course, one of our founders, his granddaughters, and we got Heather, who sadly passed just last year at her sister's house down in London. We got Heather along in Sandy Jardine. Also attended that day to unveil the plaque. You know, it's but we were told, you know, the plaque is within the football centre there at Glasgow Green, you know, and when we first kind of mooted the idea, we were told it wouldn't last down there a week, but it's been there, they say, since September 2009, and there's not been a scratch on it, and that's been that was a very special day, you know, not only to have one of our founders' granddaughters, I mean, not a great granddaughter, an actual granddaughter.
Yeah. Someone who was there that day that when Rangers played their first ever match. It's just incredible.
Yeah, absolutely incredible, you know, and to have Sandy Jardine along, you know, and that has been one of the joys doing the research, you know, is we have made contact with other family members, you know. Harry McNeil's our grandchildren are still living there across in Bullockland, you know, and there has been others, so it's been an absolute joy, you know, sharing it with them. But yeah, to actually, you can still stay. That's the beauty of Fleshers Hall, the fact that it's still a football field, you know. To this day, you know, it's still used by kids, you know, every weekend, more or less, you know. So it's
years later.
Yeah, very special.
It's and for years people would play on there and not know that they were running out on pretty much hallowed turf. You know, there's no getting away from it.
It's a cracking spot. You know, again, when we get into the football centre with the groups, you know, you get loads of guys coming up going, goodness, I've played football here, you know, and you know, over the last few months and years, you know, and I never knew this, you know, I never knew, and that makes it special. But again, it's still tinged with a wee bit of sadness, you know, that the people didn't know, you know, and this is where the club was born, you know, and again, what is really rewarding is we get a lot of teenagers coming on the tour, you know, and you see them coming on, you're thinking this would be just maybe too heavy, but maybe too much. But again, they've been coming up at the end of the tour, you know, and saying they're just taking so much out of it, and that's the people we really want to reach, you know, because they will pass it on to the next generation, and that's what it's about. It's about the education process, you know, and letting people know how important, you know, and how valuable what the story is, you know.
Having done it, I think it's absolutely essential for any Rangers fan. And you spoke about it in the beginning, and you're so right that growing up, I had the books on Struth, and I had books on even the William Wilton. But basically, I had books from Ibrox era onwards, and I could tell you the history of Rangers, and I could tell you the names of the great players. I mean, I could list them, and the you know, the European finals and the big nights. But it was just a black, and it never really occurred to me that was a strange thing up until, you know, I mean, Iain and I had been friends for a year. I remember I'm first talking about this, but until you started saying, I thought, God, I don't know anything about that period. It's just almost like Rangers formed, and then when I spoke to other people, I found out that was quite common. Guys who could tell you about Alan Morton and all that kind of thing, you know, we didn't know. We just didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a term often used, you know, it's been a great family club, you know, and you still hear players today speaking about it, you know, and there's a wonderful example that we give during the tour. And I mentioned the guy Tom Valance there, who went on to captain the club, player, of course, and president of the club. And he was a very successful businessman in Glasgow, Tom. We pointed at a couple of his restaurants and bars as we made the journey round about town. Tom was invited along by Bill Struth in 1933 You know, I mean, the guys in his 70s, you know, and taking along as a guest at the club. 1933, we played Sporting Club of Vienna at the stadium, and that was actually the first time that a European club had came to Rangers.
Wow.
And Tom Valens was sat in the director's box that night as a guest of Mr. Struth, and then he attended the Old Firm game later that year, you know, and that's fascinating. I mean, the thought process, you know, it must have been through that guy's head. He was there at Fleshers Hall. He's seen the seed being planted, and he's sitting there in a stadium with 70, 80, 90,000 people running about him. I mean, that's just mind blowing.
Yeah.
You know,
if that doesn't get your blood pumping, you know, listening to that, then
you know, and then he passed in 1935, and Bill Struth and Chairman James Bowie, his old friend James McIntyre, who played in the same team as him, they're all there at his funeral, and incredibly the guys that he faced in the 1877 Scottish Cup final. Bear in mind, he's now 1935. There's a couple of them from Vale even attended Valens' funeral in Bearsden.
Almost, you know, 60 years later.
As I say, that line, the Rangers family, you know, it's still being used. You can still hear it today.
Yeah.
Getting thrown in interviews with players, you know, and it's a wonderful family, this club. Heard Kevin Thompson talking about it, you know, when he spoke to yourself, you know, about the warmth, and it's really special, you know. But to be able to establish how far that went back, you know, is a great joy. You know, it really is, you know.
And I think that's important for us to stress just now, that just what Iain's saying there, that when you go on the tour, it's not like they take you there and they go, this is Fleshers Hall, this we played the first game, back on the bus, and then you drive. So it's not that at all. You'll find out about the biography of these guys, you'll find out about their histories, you'll find out about what the decision process was that led to things like the move to government. All of these things are brought up. You will learn all about a period and a time that has been cloaked in mystery for almost a century, and I think that's important to stress, that it's not just a literal bus tour where you go, this is where he lived back on but you don't do that. You guys will sit and say, right, you know, we're now going to do this is where Tom Valens lived, Tom moved here in, this is why he worked, this was his businesses, Tom's you know, and you begin to, if you like, put colour into, as you said, that photograph of 1877.
Yeah, most definitely. You know, and what's important as well, Dave, you know, we didn't just stop with the supporters. What's been important to us is about getting the board of directors, you know, and the staff that work at Ibrox, you know. And last November, we took the board of directors around on the tour, and in the January, just a couple of months later, we took 32 members of staff from all departments, from various departments in the club around as well, you know, and gave them an insight into exactly what the club means and where it came from, you know. So, I say the education process, it's not just as you said there, it's not just a case of getting a story across. It's the whole education process. And people will say, oh, look at the size of Rangers are special. Well, give us the opportunity and we'll show you why we're special, you know. And it's not just a throwaway line, you know. This, you know, being a very special club, you know, and being unique and being different, you know, but we are, you know, and where this has moved on to over the last couple of years, certainly it's escalated or gathered pace is the restoration in the Rangers Graves project, you know, and unfortunately, when we were researching these guys' stories, the majority of their final resting places were found in a state of disrepair, you know, and some of them didn't have stones, and some of these stones re-erected. So once again, we went out to support. And no surprise that the Rangers support didn't let anyone down. They rallied again, you know, and the donations came in, and that has let us restore these plots, you know. And it's important, you know. The club they purchased a stone for Harry McNeil, who of course was Moses' older brother. But the vast majority of this has been done by the support, you know. And we like to think it is the support saying thanks to these guys. You know, it's you know, some of them are lying in paupers' graves, you know, but it's giving them back some dignity and respect, which we all know they earned over the years, you know, and gave us what we have today. So the restoration project has also gathered pace in tandem with the Founders Trail, you know. So we're absolutely delighted with how that's going on. There's also been we're getting more and more supporters clubs coming now and doing it as their kind of annual trip, which is great. Supporters clubs from all over, and we've also taken it on now to presentation evenings, because we are aware there isn't every supporters club that can make the journey to Ibrox. Everything's also geared towards coming out for the game, and expect that we come back again a day later, is pushing it a bit far. So we came up with the concept, of putting this story onto screen and taking it to the supporters clubs, and that's went down extremely well. We're going down to Plymouth next June with the story. We've been across to Northern Ireland, down in Wales, down to see the guys in Cardiff, no, it's been in Leicestershire, the Fringston guys, so it's that is another side of it, that's we're trying to make sure we miss no one, with it, and make sure that it is embraced and then passed on, hopefully, to the next generation, Davey.
I think another thing that's key and should be pointed out is that you help make money for the club with this. I mean, this is something that the club benefits from, and on top of it being a fantastic, there really is no reason, if you haven't done this, to not go on it, because you are putting money into the club by doing this, and as Iain had maybe mentioned earlier, just to reiterate, it finishes off with a tour of Ibrox, and you get to see what you hear about, the stories of these boys who've created this thing, and then you go in and you see the results of that, and when to go from Flesher's Hall, and then you go to Ibrox and you go into the trophy room and you think, wow. It really is an incredibly humbling experience. There's no other word for it. When you just
there is obviously benefit for the club there. It's over 8,000 passengers we've taken since 2009, and also that's 8,000 people through their front door. So it's very much benefiting the club. We give every passenger a 10% discount for a Gatehouse restaurant, and an effort to try and make people use the facility there. We've got a very close working relationship with Colin Stewart at the Rangers Lotto, and a lot of the money, we purchase bricks. We're on a fun raffle, during the day. We get to Partick Bowling Club, and if we're not buying match tickets, which we raffle on the day, then we're buying stadium bricks. So we're trying to make sure as many facets of the club benefit, from this as possible. So there is a lot of money getting regenerated back into the club, which is good. It's rewarding. And we do all work together. We've often said we don't work for the club, but we work with them, and we work very closely with them. Which is great. It's after we went through, as we all know, between 2012 and 2015. To come out the other side of that and start to see the club start to breathe again.
And
to be able to help that.
And be a club,
help that process along. It's rewarding.
What's been your personal highlight? I mean, it's been 8 years. Was longer in your involvement, but what's been your personal highlight, would you say?
I think it's reaching those 8,000 people. It's very easy to say, well, there's 250,000 went to Manchester, so we've got a long way to go yet. But it is reaching, so many people, and the positive feedback, that we've had, and working really closely with Gordon. My colleague Gordon is just, as a researcher, he's second to none. He's tireless, and if once he gets his teeth into something, he keeps going until he gets an answer. There'd never been an image of William McBeath, and Gordon got his hands on one up in the Mitchell Library a couple of years back. There's been huge highlights, like that, but it's it's being in touch, it's spending a day. The tour starts at 12 and we're finished kind of Ibrox around about 5:30, 6:15, and you spend a day in the company of so many Rangers supporters, and people from all walks of life. It's just been an absolute joy. It's been fantastic. With some great stories. I remember part of the 1877 team, the goalkeeper was a guy by the name of James Watt. And on the way to Flesher's Hall, I'll give you a bit of background, to Glasgow Green. We try to include as much history about Glasgow as we can, with the club growing arm in arm with the city, and industrialisation, etc. They've mentioned, Glasgow Green here, used to be a drying area for the women of Glasgow. In 1765, James Watt came up with the idea for the steam engine. We were strolling through the park, and then we went to Flesher's Hall and done the bit and mentioned the 1877 team, and the James Watt that played for this woman came off, she's standing with her husband, she says, excuse me a second, she goes, you telling me then that the gentleman who invented the steam engine was actually also Rangers goalkeeper? You know, and her husband standing behind her, you know, shaking his head in total disbelief, you know.
Well,
of course I said yes.
Yes, I'm going to start telling people that James Watt College in Cowinn's named after him. That's going to be my new one.
So, there's been a few great highlights, you know, and meeting the people just been absolutely brilliant, you know, and putting them back in touch with their club, you know, and the amount of people again that came to us after it, and you know, and said, I've actually fell in love with Rangers again, you know, through this big emails, you know, a few days after it, and it's hugely encouraging, you know, it's been an absolute joy, Davey, you know, over the years, and hopefully for many years to come. You know, it's you know, we've got another bus tour. We've got a presentation in Stevenson on Friday night, and then got the bus tour on Saturday. So it's keeping us going, to say the least. You know.
How can people sign up for this, Iain?
Founderstrail.co.uk is our website, Davey, and all our tours are listed there with availability. As I said, we've launched the first batch of tours for 2018, such as the demand for it. And also the website there, it'll gives you an insight into the research work that we've carried out, and of course the restoration project and everything else we've been working on over the last few years. You know, if you do find, you know, the tours are you can't get a date to suit you, you know, and if they are filling pretty quickly, you know, just hold on, because we do try and slot them in. We try and slot extra dates in, you know, as often as we can, you know, to make sure there's nobody left disappointed. So yeah, it's that's where you'll find us at founderstrail.co.uk.
Well, I honestly can't recommend this enough. As I say, I've been on it, and it is
thanks very much indeed.
It is. It's moving. I mean, there's no other word to describe it. It's moving. It hits you emotionally in a way that's hard to describe. Actually, it's a bit like the love you have of your club. It's a feeling, and I can understand the people that written to you say they fell in love again. It sort of re-energises it, and it takes you a little bit up and above the kind of day-to-day struggle of arguments with players, or is this the right manager, or blah blah. It lifts you out of this, and it lets you see in its full glory Rangers and what it's about and the history, and because we can get too narrowly focused on, understandably, on, you know, what's happening today, whereas I think the Founders Trail gives you the opportunity to look at this thing, this enormous, wonderful, world-changing thing, and I honestly, I cannot recommend, if you haven't been on it, I cannot recommend it enough. And Iain, thank you very much for coming and sharing that with us today. I thoroughly enjoyed that.
Thanks very much, David. It's been an absolute pleasure, and hopefully we'll see a few more people coming along, you know, and making contact. Just drops an email, gets a call, you know, we can have a chat, and it's hopefully for many years to come. It'll keep pushing forward and reaching the heart and souls of people.
Absolutely,
you know,
absolutely. Well, that was Iain, and as he says, founderstrail.co.uk. Just pop along there and get yourself booked up to go on it, and you'll also learn, even just visiting the website, you'll also learn stuff I'm sure you wouldn't have known before I have, and it's a really valuable resource, incredibly valuable resource. Just to let you know then that the show on Monday, should you wish to listen to the normal flagship show, is a question, so send it in to Twitter. I'm at IbroxRocks using the hashtag HHPod, and you'll also find us on Facebook. Just search for Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. All that remains for me to do then is to thank our executive producers in London, Mr. Mike Lee and Mr. Paul Miles, to thank my guest, the wonderful Mr. Iain McColl.
Thanks very much, David.
And to thank you all for listening, encourage you to go on the tour, and say my name's David Edgar, and I will speak to you all again on Monday.